Hi, I'm Tina Teneriello, and in this series, I'm interviewing employees at Pommerlo to break misconceptions about the construction industry through their stories. Today, we're tackling the place of women in construction. I'm here with Jayne McLean, Senior Operations Manager at Pommerlo. Jayne has worked for over 22 years in the construction industry. She now manages a team of 15 professionals in the Special Project Division, leading some of the most challenging sites at Pommerlo. Jayne, thank you so much for joining us today. Nice to meet you.
Thank you for having me.
Jayne, let's get right into your role at Pommerlo. Describe it to me for someone who might be not familiar with the construction industry.
Our kind of slogan in special projects is make the complex simple. So my role really entails the execution side of our projects, getting it set up, getting the project team on site and delivering it to the client and handing over those keys, that space at the end of the project. That's where my responsibility is on a day-to-day.
Can you give me some example of some of the projects you're working on right now?
We have a 30-story building in downtown Toronto where we have to remove some large pieces of equipment from the rooftop there and also some large equipment from the basement and the middle floors. So very logistically challenging, lots of public, it's a live building, and some high voltage power as well that we need to deal with.
So this is really a job where you're in the field a lot.
I'm in the field. That's what I really love. Don't see me too often in the office. The team get a bit surprised when they see me more than a couple of days in the office and wonder what's happening. But yeah, I can be anywhere really in the daytime, on site, in the trailer. It's not sat in a desk in an office every single day.
And does that fit your personality well?
Yes. I think the longest project I ever had the same desk for was 3 years, and it blew my mind. I couldn't stay there for any longer, and I really love just having been in different spaces, different work areas, rather than just having the same seat every single day.
Talk to me about what led you to choosing the construction industry.
So back home in England, my parents purchased a really old farmhouse. It needed completely renovating. My dad was very hands-on and wanted to do a lot of the work. You know, as a kid, you wanted to help. I'd want to help hold the tape measure and watch the workers do things, ask them questions, and just got really intrigued on what could be done. So really, it's our old farmhouse that my parents still live in today.
Oh, wow.
And I think it was just really interesting as well, being involved in something that was making a space for many years to come. It's quite incredible, really, what you do in construction.
There are some misconceptions about the construction industry. I'm curious, is that something you yourself faced when choosing this industry, particularly as a woman?
I think the misconceptions, a lot of them are untrue.
Okay.
In my team of 15 I manage, it's 50-50 men and women. And even on our client groups, there are a lot of women who I sit with at the table, who are the decision makers for our clients. And then in the consulting world, architects, engineers, lots of women, lots of people from different parts of the world. We're now seeing a lot more women in the industry, and it's rare that I'm the only woman at the table.
And you're a mom of twins?
I am.
What's the work-life balance like as a mom working in construction?
I'm very mindful of when I can actually dedicate the time to meetings and getting to locations and being fully present. And I think for me, it was just really important about setting the time that I can arrive on site and setting my time of when I need to leave on site. And then also making sure I have downtime for me, just to get that mental break, have a bit of freshness in there so that I can start the next day fresh.
Yeah, that's important too. Fill your own cup.
Yep.
You have 22 years experience in the field. I'm curious, what kind of progress have you seen in the last 22 years when it comes to the place women have in this field?
So I remember the first project I worked on. I remember arriving on the first day and the site super saying, I think we need to get you your own washroom, because I was the only woman on site. And I remember the magazine photos and things that were in the canteen, a little bit explicit. Those were removed. The dark ages of when I first started and things that were just the norm. And now just seeing the development of gloves available in smaller sizes, the availability and normality of those types of clothing. When I first started in construction 20 plus years ago, I was the only woman. It was more challenging. It was difficult to be heard. Whereas now I go to meetings and I talk to other women. We talk about being moms, and it just seems more acceptable now. If I was to say at the end of the day, I have to leave, I have to pick up the children, it's really accepted.
And that work-life balance, I mean, that's good not only for women, but also for men, I'd imagine as well. It's improving the conditions for everyone.
Absolutely. There's a mix in my team of people who have children, people who are caring for elderly parents and pets alike. We all have these commitments and we have to make that time for it. So I don't really think that the time management work balance isn't really a women issue. It's just a human being having good sanity issues.
We talked about some of those misconceptions of the industry. I'm curious, did you yourself have any before you entered this field 22 years ago?
I felt that there wasn't a lot of technology. We hadn't really developed. It was very manual. But as I've progressed, I've started to see the shifts on how we're now starting to use technology innovation to do less manual labor. Some of these new technologies for PPE is really quite innovative. Even in the last 5 years, it's been exponential in the change in innovation and the products available, with a safety portion in mind for sure.
And I would imagine that that's just facilitating everybody's job.
It also makes it more available to lots of other people. You don't necessarily have to be super strong to be able to lift something or have a certain body structure to be able to do a certain job now, especially in the field, is because these pieces of equipment really facilitate it for any size, shape, ability.
So it's making the field even more accessible to women.
For sure. For sure.
I'm curious, when you're going to work, sometimes when you encounter people on public transit, do you ever encounter some people who may see you in your work boots or something and have some misconceptions about what you do?
Absolutely. If I go on the train in the morning to get downtown and I'm in all of my PPE and I'm in my boots already, I'm the last choice that someone wants to sit next to me. I think it's quite sad that people don't necessarily realize that I went to university, I have a master's, I've studied really hard, I'm really smart. And there's a misconception that I don't have the credentials that maybe they do have, or they treat me slightly differently just because I do have some dust on my jeans.
Is it something hard to deal with? How does it make you feel?
I kind of got over it now. I think maybe when I was a little bit less experienced, I found it a little bit offensive. But now I think really it's people's lack of understanding in how the world gets put together, how infrastructure works, how buildings work, and actually what goes into making a construction project. These buildings don't just appear. There's hundreds of hours, so many different people, so many different designations of people involved in making these projects work. We all have a part to play, and I don't think the public necessarily understand how many people and how many different types of backgrounds and specialties go into making a project.
Yeah, it's an industry with many opportunities beyond boots on the ground as well.
Yeah, so many different types of trades, very sophisticated, extremely smart, very knowledgeable on the latest innovations, and real mixture of different experiences, different qualifications, many different types of opportunities that are available in the industry.
And you personally, what do you love about working in the construction industry?
I think I love the most is the output of our job has a meaningful impact on the environment and people's lives. Even this morning when I flew out of Toronto, the airport lounges where I sat in, I spent 2.5 years expanding those airport lounges. I knew all the details intimately of that project, and it was great to go back and see how it's looking today, a few years later. People get their coffees and they don't realize how many challenges we had about where that coffee machine was to be located, to get the water, to get the power, and how many days or meetings we spent figuring out that. To everyone else in that space, it was an airport lounge that's fully functioning. But to me, that was 2.5 years and coming together to hand over a project that the public could use.
You also worked on a children's hospital. That's another, tell me about that project.
This was before I had children. And when I first moved to Canada, I worked on the pursuit of Children's Hospital in Hamilton. And sitting with clinicians who worked with children with severe disabilities day in, day out, and understanding what was needed in that building, it really made me have a different perspective on what other families are going through, and really made me passionate about listening to stakeholders and what they really need in their building, and ultimately delivering a building for people to use and have a positive impact in their lives. We had a playground that we had to construct, and it had to be fully accessible for children in any wheelchair device. When we came to hand over the building, it was quite an emotional day, seeing people in the building, and there were some parents there with their children getting to enjoy this fully accessible playground that had bridges and hills and mounds that people could climb up, and the devices would be able to go up and go on these spaces too. And I remember one of the parents turned to another and said, "Oh, I'd love to meet the person who built this." And I just smiled. And it just gave me great satisfaction knowing that I had been part of that. It was really touching. And I think that's where my big passion for creating spaces, changing lives really comes about, because I got to see it.
It's an incredibly touching story. And I think it's just a beautiful example of just how much of an impact you can have in this field that, your average person would not even realize.
Exactly. And there's a lot of projects that also happen without people necessarily knowing. Maybe some infrastructure upgrades, maybe it's some non-glamorous roof repair work, electrical upgrades. And those are great too, because it didn't impact anyone's daily life. It didn't impact the business's operations. It just happened.
Yeah, that's an important perspective as well. What kind of advice would you have for perhaps another young woman who may be considering this industry, maybe a little bit hesitant because of some misconceptions that she may have?
Talk to people who are actually boots on the ground in the industry. Ask questions, try things out, and see what's going on construction projects, because a lot of it is now available in social media to be able to see what's going on.
You described the progress that you've witnessed as a woman in this field in the last 22 years. Are there still some challenges to overcome for women in this field?
Yes, I think there are still some challenges, a lot less than I experienced before when I first came into the industry. What I would say is one of the challenges that I see is that women in the industry have to prove themselves before they can get further and before people will really trust them. There's a lot of getting people comfortable and confident with the women on their team. And what I really try to do is give the women in my team the confidence that the women need to be confident in their ideas, and the men at the table need to welcome those ideas and have the respect to listen.
You're describing a challenge that I think probably many people in many different industries can relate to. What makes you the most proud of working in this industry?
When I walk downtown in the city with my kids, and they now know buildings that mommy worked on. And I think that's really cool.
That's really powerful. And they're also helping to shape the next generation and breaking down those misconceptions, right? By saying mommy builds things.
Exactly.
Women and men build things.
Yes, we all can build things.
Thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.